Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Jace again. And one of the biggest complaints in the sneaker game today is about how resellers are ruining the market for everybody. But what if I told you that sneaker reselling has become an essential part of the ecosystem of the sneaker game itself, and it is potentially responsible for you still being able to buy your favorite sneakers? All that and more in this video. And as always, if you don't know who I am, my name is Jace. I'm a product designer that's very passionate about finance, investments, sneakers, and design. So I talk about all those things on this channel. So if you find any of the content today interesting or even remotely, helpful to you, please make sure to destroy that subscribe button and hit the like button as well. It really does help me out. But without further ado, let's get into this video. Alright, welcome back everybody. So as I already covered, the topic is going to be about reselling today and why it's essential to your sneakers staying in production. So if you know or don't already know, within the past 3 to 4 years or so, the sneakerhead population has really blown up, and it's really become a big trend because of things like TikTok and Instagram and other social media platforms where almost everyone and their mother seems to be hopping on. So with the emergence of all of these social media platforms and it just kind of being more readily available now, a lot of people are starting to realize that getting into sneakers can be a very expensive hobby, and what's the easiest way to generate some extra income, right? It's to get sneakers and resell them. And this is where this kind of big issue is stemming from, is that there's just not enough stock for all the people that want these sneakers. And on the topic of supply and demand, I would say a lot of people have a good understanding of how supply and demand works. When the good has a finite or limited supply and there's more demand than can be met, you're going to see the emergence of a secondary market. And this is generally especially true for collectible items such as cards, watches, sneakers, clothes, cars, you name it. And even more recently, McDonald's sauces. And the number one thing that I always see people commenting, including myself, is why doesn't Nike just produce more stock for people? They have so many factories all over the world and they definitely have the accessibility to do so. But being a product designer, allow me to shed some light on the design/business perspective and why they're probably never going to do that. If you think of every sneaker that's loaded up on Nike right now, or sneakers right now, each one of those is a different SKU or a different product. Each of those products had a certain product design life cycle to it that included doing R&D, which is research and development. And generally, that costs a lot of money to do because it involves creating samples, sourcing materials, and working out tons of logistical and packaging and transportation things that needs to be baked into the price of the shoe. Now with that said, generally they need to sell a certain amount of units so that they meet a threshold to make it have been worth it to produce that sneaker in the first place. That's the key thing here to remember, is that they need to be able to recoup their money and also make some profits. Otherwise, it's not really considered a good investment for them initially to create that sneaker or whatever product it is. And if you want to think of it more conceptually, when you're buying into a product or you're buying into a company stock or whatever, you're basically voting with your dollars. You're telling the company, hey, I support your R&D, I support your products, and we hope to see more of these products. That's essentially what you're doing anytime you buy something. You're telling them you support them. And I know that's a bit of a kind of weird concept to think about, and something that you'll generally see more often is the opposite, which is where if a company does something bad or they produce a product that sucks, usually there's going to be some kind of massive outreach on social media where they boycott or like abandon the product because they did something unethical, for example. And that's kind of very similar to what I'm talking about right now. To make it more realistic too, another example is if Jordan 1s always sell out, Nike is going to continue making Jordan 1s, right? Because there's so much popularity and they know they're going to be able to recoup their initial costs, because they have to invest a ton of money just like we invest money in sneaker investments. They have to be able to recoup their costs for the Jordan 1s, and if they know people are going to for sure buy them, they're going to keep making them. So my question to you is, if most of you know or don't even know what a Jordan 19 is, when was the last time you saw them retro or re-release a Jordan 19? I don't remember the last time they did that. And it's because it's just not a popular shoe and they don't know if they can recoup the money. So, simple as that. So now that we're done talking about the design and business perspective, we're gonna get into from the perspective of the customers or the people. And this is where I'm gonna be making my points about why reselling is so intertwined and almost necessary in order for all of these sneakers that you love so much to continue to be produced in such mass quantities, even though it may not seem that way. So the resale market or the secondary market is truly a product of the fact that there just isn't enough supply for all the demand going around. And I would attribute this mainly to the what I would call over popularity of certain sneakers like the Dunk or the Air Jordan 1. And this is where the problem lies, right? So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation where if there wasn't so much demand for these sneakers, Nike probably wouldn't produce so many of it. Even though people may say that, oh, if it wasn't so popular, I'd be able to cop this easily. And I remember when I was able to walk into the store and just buy them. Yes, that's true, but Nike could totally just stop producing so many if it ever loses the popularity and loses the trends. I mean, just think back to early last year in the first half. How many dunks were they releasing? Not that many, but through the second half of 2020 and this year, they've been releasing dunks nonstop because it is the trend, and like it or not, reselling has a big part to do with that demand generation or building up that funnel, as we call it in marketing. You gotta build up that funnel of customers, right? So if everyone on social media is seeing that everyone's rocking Dunks or Air Forces or Jordan 1s, all of a sudden everybody's gonna be like, oh, I want one too, I want a pair too. And that's where that begins. So what I'm saying is that is a big reason why there's so much demand and the reason why Nike is producing so many sneakers. And this is a conversation I have with a lot of my sneakerhead buddies that do investing alongside me. And we always talk about the fact that they sell out of all the sneakers anyways. And that's kind of the big point that everyone always brings up is they sell out all their sneakers anyways. So why do they need to create less supply or, purposely limit the amount of supply out there? But as we know from the previous videos that I've made, that even shoes that aren't super popular still sell out in a matter of minutes, if not the same day, on platforms like Sneakers and Confirmed app. And yes, it is true that means that there is a good amount of popularity for it, so Nike should just keep producing it. But then I always like to bring up the point then, why aren't they producing more versions of it then? They produced some 7s, for example, or some 13s, but it's only a few colorways. If you look at the amount of Dunks and Jordan 1s that were produced the last 2 years versus the amount of 7s or 13s that were produced, or even 11s, you'll notice there's a big discrepancy between the two. And that's really my point, is that Nike in a way is listening to the customers. They know what their customers want right now. They want Dunks, they want Jordan 1s. And if it was not for resellers, for example, creating all of this demand or people wanting all of this product, Nike definitely would not be making as many different colorways as they are right now. So whether you can get your hands on a sneaker or not, overall, it's actually probably a better time for sneakerheads because you're seeing the emergence of all of these new colorways and new versions of this sneaker that you apparently love so much. And another reason why reselling is kind of intertwined with everything is just as much like how Nike's marketing strategy is so well intertwined and it's so efficient. And I've always said that they probably have one of the best marketing strategies in the world because they do word of mouth, they use social media platforms, they do things like hiring influencers that gullible kids or impressionable teenagers or whatever age that they are going to listen to these people and think well, if I see them doing it, then I want to have it too. And that is creating tons of demand. And this is really consequently why Nike sells out of all of their sneakers almost instantaneously when it was never this case back then. But like I said, just look at the amount of colorways that are coming out now compared to back then. It's so much more, and there is a reason for that. So in any case, let me know in the comments below if you agree with my points or if you have any other insights as to why you think reselling is or isn't necessary to the sneaker game. Personally, like I said, I think it's a big deal because that's really how Nike determines if they're going to make more colorways or not. And if you look to past trends, there's so many more colorways being produced now compared to back then. Like, they are producing it in mass. But anyways, that's pretty much the video. I hope I've shed some light on why there are some finer points to why reselling is an essential part of the sneaker game for Nike and other companies' ecosystems. And the biggest reason of all is that it tells Nike that they should continue producing the Dunk, the Jordan 1, and produce tons more of them. Even if you're not getting your favorite colorway, it doesn't change the fact that Nike is producing more Dunks, more Jordan 1s, more 11s than ever. And that's a fact. And it is definitely partially in due to the high, super high demand out there in the market right now. Once again, it's Jayce, not your typical sneakerhead. I have a passion on this channel for talking about finance, investment, sneakers, and design. So make sure you keep it locked here. I drop a new video about these ideas and topics every Thursday. So make sure that you stay laced, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.